Hello everyone and welcome to a new IBMI RPG sample video. Today I'd like to talk about how to use list and range and how can I use the operator in to use those lists and ranges to improve our code. Let's go. Well, before starting with the practice, a little theory. Let's talk about list. List is a built-in function that returns a temporary array with some values. All of these values must have compatible types. This array can be stored into memory if I set the result of a list to an array, but normally this is not the normal use of a list. Okay, let's write some code. Let me open a basic structure of a program to write some examples. Okay, for example, we can define a list like this. List A, B, C. Okay, let me do this. Well, but this is useless and we must use it, as I said before, for storing it into an array that can be done this way. Letters and then we can do something like this, okay? Or maybe we can use it for a quick check. This check can be done with the operator in. With this operator, we can use an operand to see if it is in a list. So for example, we can do something like this. Okay. Okay, so in this case, as we only need to check if a letter is inside the list, that is a temporary array, we don't need to use an array. Just let's use the list. So we can remove this. Well, let me copy it here. And we can write it here. Oops. And we can remove it. So this is completely the same. Oops. An extra semicolon there. Okay. This is completely the same as before. Okay. Well, it is also important to know how to know if some value is not in a list. We don't have the not in operator, so we will need to use not to turn the result around. So we will need to do something like this. If not letter in list, then no, it isn't. It is not. Okay? Well, list is fantastic. If we didn't have it, we should write this code as this. If letter is different than A and letter is different than B and letter is different than C, okay? This and this are completely the same. So list is a very good way for making our code more readable, as well as improving the performance of the code. Remember that you can also use list with for each, okay? Well, let me remove this. Okay, well, in is also fantastic because it can be used not just with lists, it can be used with arrays, subarrays, and ranges. We will see it later. So if we need to know if some value is in an array, we normally use a lookup, and it is returning me an index that I will compare with 0. Using in, we are getting directly the Boolean value. Okay, for example, we can do something like this. Let me create again for example, okay, and letter is equal to list D E F. Okay, if letter in letters found. Okay, so letters is an array defined here, okay, and I'm using in with the array. Okay, is this different than I have initialized the array with list? Okay, by now I have only given examples of simple lists, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but imagine that we need to write a list with a number of elements that cannot be written. Imagine that we want to see if a decimal number is inside a list. We cannot write all the possibilities. So for that, we can use range. Range is a built-in function that is not returning a value. It can only be used with the operator in. And then we can define a range. If the first operand of in is greater or equal to the first element of the range, and less or equal to the last element of the range, then the result will be true. Otherwise, will be false. Well, so for example, we can do something like this. Let me change this. Let me define P, that is, for example, okay, and we can write something like this. If P in range okay, okay, well, this is the same as if I write if P is greater than or equal to 1 and P is less than or equal to than 10. Okay, this is completely the same. Okay, but I think this is more readable than this. Okay, well, be careful with the orders, okay, because if we write a range between -1 and -10, it will not work. You should write it between -10 and -1, okay? So be careful with the signs of the numbers. Well, maybe you are wondering, can I use range with letters? Well, of course, yes. We can do something like this. For example, C, and let me remove this. If letter in range A to F, then letter is hexadecimal. Else okay, so this way, as letter that is C is between A and F, then C is hexadecimal. Okay, if I write here a G, it will be, I will get letter is not hexadecimal. Okay, well, as you have seen, list and range are great built-in functions that will help us to improve our code, not only for making it more readable, also internally these functions are optimized to be better than a list of comparisons between values using if, else, etc. Within, we can see if a value is in a list, in a range, also very quick and easy. Please start using these new functions, they will make our life better. I hope you liked the video and that it was useful to you. As always, remember to like and subscribe if you aren't already. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.